Hey, what's going on out there, everybody? This is Sammy Legge here representing TeamJVS, here to give you guys another series review. This is straight from AMC. I'm talking about Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. And yes, we all have seen, or most of you guys should have seen, Tom Cruise, Kirsten Dunst, Brad Pitt in 1994's Interview with the Vampire. It's a classic. I think Kirsten Dunst was even nominated for an Oscar for it, for playing the 14-year-old Claudia. Now, the roles have been now reprised, of course, by new people. In Jacob Anderson playing the role of Louis, Sam Reed playing the role of Lestat, and Bailey Bass playing the role of Claudia. This was directed by, I believe, he was created by Roland Jones. I know him from Weeds. I used to love Weeds. One of the things about Weeds is it gets very dark at times, but it also keeps this very interesting connective tissue of family. And in the midst of a whole lot of struggle and violence and terrible things, you know, there's real emotion that goes there, and they absolutely are able to nail that in every single possible conceivable way. Eric, I always get his last name wrong, Bogason plays the role of Molloy. Molloy is the interviewer. The way they played this off was really interesting because I think in 1973, Molloy did an attempt with Louis to do an interview. So I don't know if this is kind of like a pseudo sequel, but either way, they've tried to do it before, and now lo and behold, like, Molloy's a little bit older, had a little bit more life to live, a lot more jaded, and he's looking at Louis like, I don't know if I care to tell your story, let alone trust anything that's coming out of your mouth. So this makes their interaction very interesting. The other thing that they do with Louis is homosexual, and his relationship with Lestat is very different. Like, it's not just codependency, brother, kin, in, you know, oppressor and oppressee, or, you know, like Stockholm Syndrome. Like, there's more to this because of how drawn Louis is to Lestat. They're off the basis of just their relationship. It requires the show to take a completely different trajectory, I guess the best way I can kind of say it. Also, with Jacob Anderson being, you know, a black man, like, there's also different things that, you know, in the French Quarter and where they're at in Louisiana or wherever they go, whether it's Paris or wherever they're at, you know, he's going to be looked at differently. His perception is differently. Even the way his dynamics of how things are done differently, because people already are looking down on him at a certain way. So it's not just his social status, it's literally a part of him from an ethnic standpoint. Makes even more interesting. So you have a black man that is homosexual, that is, you know, not that he's got a chip on his shoulder, but he's very his intellect is very sound, but people's perception of him is that they can use him, they can draw him, so he has to be very harsh. And then when he meets up with Lestat, it adds something of power, intrigue, and passion that he never had before, but there's a price to everything. And then that moment that, you know, their characters meet, the weird thing about this is that this is probably one of the most believable star-crossed love dynamics that I've seen in a very long time based on this situation. Like, it's weird to say that I buy their relationship. Like, it's as weird as it is, as messed up as it is, it's a very believable story. Like, it's not like this is just your conventional love story. Like, no, there's in between things that happen, and I don't know if it's because AMC is given no limitations to what they can and can't do, like with nudity, with sex, with violence, like, but there's something about that organic nature of their relationship. And Sam and Jacob, their chemistry is off the charts because they don't feel like they're holding back at any time. Any interaction that they're having, whether it's their eyes, whether it's their mannerisms, you always feel like Lestat always has this thing over Louis. And Louis always has this thing for Lestat because it's something he needs, but at the same time, he knows for a fact there's a disconnect there. But yet, there's a codependence. And so, the first 5 episodes of this is insane. Like, from the first episode, you get an understanding who, you know, Louis is. You get a little bit of measure of kind of what Lestat's about. But by the second episode, you're like, oh, there's no limitation to what this could be. And it's violent. It is violent, it is gory, it is downright sad. It's never depressing though. Like I never felt like this level of depression or, it's like, but I do feel sadness. I do feel like, man, I feel bad for this. But even with Lestat, as evil and as malicious as he is, I do understand and comprehend some of the decisions that he makes. I comprehend why he does what he does. I understand why he ticks. And I think the last time something like that happened was, of course, with Joseph Morgan as Klaus with the originals. I think that he did a great job of showing different sides of evil. You know what I mean? Like the misguided sides of it. But the difference with Lestat versus Klaus, Lestat could care less about anything. There's no connection there. It's only a momentary lapse of emotion or anger. And when either one of those things happen, it's catastrophic. And then by the time you bring Claudia in the mix of it, if you know Claudia's story, it's very interconnected with Louis. They played the approach very differently. It's like a, father-daughter kind of thing, but there's different layers to this now because the questions that we would have with Kirsten Dunst's character and stuff, like her opening monologue and the way she articulates things, the way she emotes stuff is very good and pivotal to that movie. But the levels, by the time you see Claudia in the 4th and even in the 5th episode, and like what they start doing with her character, I'm not gonna say when she's first introduced because they definitely leave breadcrumbs with that. But when they fully show certain things about her, oh my gosh, it is insane. Bailey Bass does an amazing job playing Claudia. She is killing it. And again, I think that Sam Reed plays his role as Lestat perfectly, because I never feel he's overreaching, nor do I ever feel that he's overacting. I feel like this is just who this man really is. Whereas with Jacob, there's so much to unpack from his character because we're not just getting Louis from the past, we're getting Louis from the present dealing with the past. And it's so different. It's like night and day, the contrast and also the comparison to how this life that they take on becomes the sacrifice. And I think it's very fascinating because one thing that I'll say with Eric, man, I keep getting his last name wrong, Bogeson's performance as Molloy, he gives Louis no inch, never. Like it's like there's no level of emotion. He just like, yeah, nah, I'm not buying any of this. Like to the point, I'm like, man, you're playing a dangerous game. And they also do something with Molloy that's very different. I don't want to spoil, but all in all, I'm just here to say that Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire that's on AMC right now is not something you want to miss. But do know that it's very violent, very gratuitous. At times, it's very sensual, a lot of nudity. But the story, the characters are very believable. The feeling that you don't know what their limitations are is always present. You don't know what these vampires can really actually do. I still don't. Even after 5 episodes, I'm like, they have not. You know how like you get a marker of like, this is the plateau. This is how far you can actually go. This is the limitations of this. They've not shown any of that yet. Matter of fact, they're taking it into a stratosphere that I wish the movie had went to. It's like, where did all this come from? How did we get here? And they start to go into that. And it makes for a very interesting thread of stories that I hope they go down that road. Because again, I did not read the books. So I don't know, what's left or right. I did look at the movie. So this is going to be a very interesting ride. But I think that if you appreciate what the measures of how the 1994 movie went, how well it was acted, how well the characters are multi-layered, and they ask and beg a question of humanity as well as the maliciousness of how humanity can go left to right very quickly on a dime. And when you have unlimited amount of power with that, what does that mean for your mortality? They go through so many different threads in this in less than 5 episodes that I'm like, this is easily one of the better vampire shows that I've seen in a very long time. And I've looked at quite a bit of them, as you know. Hopefully you like this review. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell button. I would rate this at a 9 out of 10. I think it's really good. Peace, guys.